It was the most virulent, deadly viral outbreak the world had ever seen. 2/3 of the planet's population were gone, but small patches of hope sprouted from the fallow ashes of what once was. And for some, our humanity remained the only thing worth fighting for.
Hello and welcome. My name is James Robinson, and I'm the creator of Homestead. We are on break between season 2 and 3, and I thought it'd be fun if we could introduce you to some of the actors who bring your favorite characters to life. Today, I've got Summer Shore. Summer, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, James.
So why don't we start, and you can tell everyone a little bit about your character.
Sure, yeah. So I play Kate. And oh, Kate, bless her heart. She just has a big old heart that cares deeply for everyone. Sometimes her aching at need to help and fix things gets a little bit in the way. She can kind of railroad people in her path in her effort to help them and fix them and do what's right. But it all comes from a good place, I think, which is fun. I think that's part of why I love Kate so much, is I can kind of relate to that a little bit, just wanting to help people, but maybe not always being so tactful about it. But
Well, something interesting about Kate is, especially this last season, is she finds herself in a position of needing help.
she does. Yes. And that's a huge shift for her. And I think she's really trying to figure out how to navigate that at all, not even well, just navigate it at all, because it is new territory for her. She usually is the one who's got the answer or the solution or is the moral compass in the situation. And she finds herself pretty adrift, I think, dealing with some tough stuff and trying to figure out, what do I do now? How do I go from here?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You mentioned earlier that you're similar to Kate in that you like to help people.
Yes.
How else are you like her, and how do you think you're different from her?
Um, I'd like to think that I have a little bit more read on the room when I'm trying to help someone. I think I've got a little more compassion that I throw into the mix. But I think that sense of justice that Kate has, I really relate to. I connect with, wanting to see the right thing done, and trying to encourage others to join in and to do the right thing. She's got a bleeding heart for the marginalized and for people who are on the outs or needing help, needing that hand up. And I connect with that, I think. I do think some of the ways that we differ a little bit are our approach, our tactics. I think she's kind of a bull in a china shop, really direct, really straightforward. And I believe a softer approach sometimes is called for. But I think that's something that Kate is learning through her experiences, as she kind of gets some of those rough edges smoothed out by just being in close quarters with the crew.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And
Yeah.
it's also interesting that you were talking about how she's changing. How do you feel she's evolved over these past 2 seasons?
It's interesting. She's a character that has faith. She
Mm,
has a really strong faith in God. And I think that is a beautiful, wonderful thing. But she doesn't have a ton of life experience to really apply that faith, right?
mhm.
She's been through some tough stuff with the virus and everything, the outbreak that's happening. She's seen her whole world turn upside down. And so she's gotten to lean into that faith, and it's given her a lot of hope in the situation. But when her own personal um, sense of right and wrong, it hits up against a trial, hits up against a wall, and is really tested for the first time, really throws her for a loop. And so I think this arc of faith that she's had, where maybe there was faith and a little bit of naivete, is now really being refined by fire. Right? She's having
Yeah.
to really figure out, okay, what do I believe, and how do I live this? Because life isn't as black and white as I thought it was. There's a lot of gray. And so how do I discern what to do in the right situation and what's right when everything looks wrong?
Well, and she's getting these life lessons in the worst possible way.
Right. Under the worst circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think I'm hoping that what will result is, that she has some faith and some zeal, but with wisdom, right? She knows how to best care for people, because of her faith, but also because of her life experiences and having really been in the trenches, arm to arm with some people who've maybe gone through stuff that previously she hadn't really been aware of.
Yeah. So we've gotten a little bit over the last 2 seasons, a little look into her backstory. Have you created a backstory for her, like in your head?
A little bit, yeah. So I kind of, I kind of picture someone who grew up kind of in Mayberry, like, slightly
That would add
sheltered.
to her naivety.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's been slightly sheltered, I think, growing up, kind of came from the nuclear family where there was a lot of stability, a lot of, not a lot of hardship
Mhm.
necessarily. Kind of think of that middle class America, corn-fed kind of family. And, but as she's kind of struck out on her own, obviously, we don't really say who she's lost, but she's very much on her own now in this world. And so I imagine that she's lost all of that stability, all of that um, structure and that safety of that bubble that she kind of grew up in. And now she's out on her own, trying to maintain that bubble a little bit,
Mhm.
but also figure out, okay, now that the bubble's burst, where do I go from here?
Well, when we talked about how, helpful she is, I feel like she's a character that is very family oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and she clearly had strong uh strong ties to her family who she's lost,
Mm-hmm.
but now she's gained a new family. She's always talking about family and how this is
Yes.
her, our new family.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
I think because I'm an older sibling, I'm the oldest in my family. I just automatically, she's the big sister,
yeah,
in my mind, it's just that big sister instinct to just herd everyone and take care of them and be in charge.
sometimes to her detriment. um
Exactly.
so let me ask, what do you think is Kate's biggest secret, that the one thing that no one knows yet?
Oh, that's good. Kate's biggest secret. I think it's a secret she's keeping from herself, even. I think
Hmm.
there is below the surface a fire within her that I think she's been afraid of. She has strength um, that I think she hasn't wanted to lean on because the potential it could unlock is scary.
Oh, yeah.
I think at time, we bump into realize, gosh, if I step out, if I am bold enough to try this thing, I could really be great at it. And I think that terrifies Kate. I think there is some she sees as there for leadership and for even just her own heart and her feelings and her love for the people around her. I think it scares her. And I don't think she's quite at a place where she's willing to admit that. So I think as she continues to kind of refine her faith through some of the trials that she's going through, and I think she's going to try to different ways to figure that they're not all going to be successful. But I think down the road, if she can just step out and be bold, I think she's going to unlock some of that potential and be surprised. So
We
I
have
think she knows it
seen
yet.
a little bit of her fire occasionally,
Yeah.
but she's always
Yeah.
seemed to kind of tamp it down.
Yes.
One instance is here at the end of this last season when she confronts Warner,
Right.
and it feels like she's afraid of that fire to
Yeah.
let that loose. Like you said, it'll be interesting to see if she does.
Yeah.
So what's been the biggest challenge playing Kate for you?
Biggest challenge. I think sometimes there are moments where, I'm wanting to pour my whole heart into her character. And there are times when maybe she handles something a little more clumsily than perhaps I feel like, oh, it's going to be a mess, because so, and I think some of that is because I see my younger self in that, right? I see myself 15, 20 years ago going, oh no, honey, if you do that, that's going to be a mess. So I think there's a little bit of inner conflict there. But I think definitely one of the challenges has been some of the more intense things that Kate has bumped up against in this last season, as she's really facing some literal and figurative demons, and trying to struggle with just the intensity of what she's going through. That has definitely challenged me to dig deep and really draw out some emotion and some drama that, that is a good challenge. It's been really fun to try and rise to that occasion.
So what's been the easiest part of playing Kate?
She's got kind of a bubbly personality, and I kind of do too, I'm told. So I think, just the day-to-day interactions that she has, the humor for sure. I love the banter that Kate has with her comrades and just that camaraderie that they have, and that's really fun to get to play. And I think it helps that we're all friends, behind the scenes, and so a lot of that humor is really natural. We're already laughing before we go into a take, and so
sometimes it's hard to get to the serious moments because we're laughing so hard. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, keep it together.
So I gotta know, this past season, Kate was all over the place emotionally because of so much that was going on. I gotta know, what was your favorite moment from this past season, and why?
Honestly, I think because I tend to be a bubbly person, I think, when she confronts the three crowns, and she's face to face with this truly horrific situation, and just the raw terror and emotion of that. That was really fun to do. I had to warn my fam recording in my home studio, okay, you're going to hear some screaming. Don't be alarmed. Mom's all right. To warn the kids.
We did get a lot of feedback from that particular scene. And someone even suggested, if there's awards, that's the scene we have to put in. Yeah. So
that's
it was
so cool.
Yeah. And I
awesome.
told
Thank
people
you.
after we recorded that day, I was haunted.
No.
It was, because again, like you said, you're a very bubbly personality, and we've never had that interaction. And I honestly, when we were going in to record that, I was like, I'm wondering if, and you just, and I think it helped that we had the audio of the crown before, so you could listen to it.
And react and respond, because that really, I was lying in bed like the morning before we recorded and just sort of listening on my earbuds. And I was like, oh, I should not have done this. Well, I'm like all comfy in bed. I had to get up. I was like, whoa, that was really creepy. So definitely having that audio, that incredible performance by Travis was just, that
he
took
really,
me right there.
And I will say, a lot of people actually wanted to play that role. A couple of people who had read the script was like, oh, please let me. And but having worked with Travis and knowing what Travis can do, and he gave me, like, he said I would like to take a crack at this role, and then he broke down like what he wanted to do and gave me some samples, and we played with it a little bit, and what he turned out was chilling. And the whole time we were doing it, I just kept going in my head, like, Summer is going to, I know she can go there, but I want her to go beyond that. And you did, like, in spades. So, and everyone's, the part I think that everyone kind of focused on was after that was all over, when Cohen got Kate into the truck and you guys were escaping and you just broke. That was the scene that everyone was like, oh, this is really bad. Well,
and it's, I think it's that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, okay, because you're holding your breath that whole time, that whole interaction, with the third crown. You're just like, what is happening? And I think that's one of the wonderful things about an audio drama, right, is our imaginations are our worst enemies. And so what we are picturing in our head is this horrific scene, worse than anything we could actually put on screen. And so, our minds are just racing and we're holding our breath. And I think that's that moment of release when everybody goes, oh, that was awful. I was just in the room with Hannibal Lecter, it's just this.
Well, and the greatest part too was, when we after the shot was fired, there was that quiet moment where she's just breathing and the gun drops, and we just hang on that for a moment, and we're with Kate, the most traumatic thing. And she, you can argue that she was triumphant over that moment, but was she? I mean, we don't know how badly it's affected her. We know that she's kind of like, she's shoving it aside right now. She's not really dealing with it. So it's going to be interesting, I think, in this next season to see how that comes back and how she deals with it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, and
I say that knowing exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah. We're like, we know. Well, I think part of the intricacy of it too is just how he's gaslighting her. and playing with her mind. It's not just this physical threat, but it's this psychological threat that's happening. And I think that's part of what makes it so terrifying, and why Travis does such an amazing job, because he just draws it out in the perfect way.
Yeah.
And so you're just hanging on the
edges. No, it was fantastic. So so here's a fun question.
Okay.
If you could play a different character in the series, who would you love to play?
Oh, I think it would be super fun to play Jamie, which probably doesn't surprise you at all. I love her sarcasm. I definitely have a strong sarcastic thread that I weave into most of my life. So
I honestly can't wait till I can get Becca on here and talk to her about that, because it was something that she brought. And I've told you guys before, Jamie was a throwaway character. She was not. I had intended for Becca to be part of this, but I had not intended Jamie to become the character that she became, and that's all.
Now I can't imagine it without her. Yeah. No, she's done a great job, because she does. She brings that sort of that strength and that sarcasm, but also she's got that tender, soft heart underneath it all that just she brings it out so beautifully.
And just with the final episode, we just saw deep into Jamie's heart.
Yes.
And I can't wait to explore that more, especially I mean, Jamie is has become such an amazing character from just the few lines I wrote for her because I needed another voice to this amazing character. And stay tuned when we talk to Becca. It'll be really interesting to get her take on how that character has evolved.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't mind playing Jamie myself.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
another fun question: if we were making this into a movie, hello Hollywood,
hello,
who would you love to see play Kate?
Oh, that's good. So like part of me wants to throw a Latina vibe in it because I'm half Latina and have like Sofia Vergara play it. Like, she's got that like fiery, so I think that could be super cool. Realistically though, let's see, because I have not thrown a Latina vibe into Kate's character. In my head, she's blonde for some reason. I don't know.
In your head, she's what?
Blonde. I don't know if she is or not.
She's always been brunette to me.
Oh, there we go.
But I was actually told recently that she comes off as Italian.
Interesting. Okay, here's a fun fact. I was in Rome a couple of years ago and I'd been brushing up on my Italian and I was incredibly tan, and a local woman asked me for directions on the bus. I felt like I've arrived. I am a local. She just asked me for directions in Italian. I answered her, I don't know. I'm not from here. I'm from out of town. I don't know where that is. But she asked in the first place. So I guess I could pass for Italian.
The character that I was, or the actress that got brought up to me that I thought, was Lizzie Kaplan.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I would be honored. Lizzie, if you're watching.
But this also came from the guy who suggested Chris Hemsworth for himself. So
that's okay. Okay. I mean, if Lizzie's not available, I could play opposite Chris. That would be just fine.
We'll see if we can make that happen.
Okay, great.
I gotta know, because I handle 100% of the writing.
Right.
But I have, offered it out to everyone. If you want to write something, do it. I would love to get your take on it. So I would love to ask you right now, if you wrote an episode of Homestead, what do you think the story would be?
Well, one of the things that Becca and I have been talking about is writing sort of the backstory for Kate and Jamie's friendship and sort of how that came to be, because they've got some history together, but we haven't really brought it to light. And so that's something that Becca and I have tossed around some ideas about. So I think that would be super fun to write sort of their backstory and how they sort of come to be in the same place at the same time in this post-apocalyptic scenario. So I think that would be really cool.
I am encouraging that 100%. And I think people who see this are going to start encouraging that. So last question before we go. What do you think Kate's future holds? What would you like to see happen?
Well, The arc that I imagine, I suppose, I think things are going to get a little worse before they get better. And some of that is knowing, and some of that is imagining. But that's
I'm
just
not very
life too, isn't
secretive
it?
with the cast.
No,
I tell them
yeah.
everything.
We know way too much. But I think that's just life too, right? The arc of life doesn't always you don't just go through one thing and then it just automatically gets better. Usually we have to go through it for a while. And so I think there's going to be some rough edges that kind of get smoothed out. I think there's going to be some mistakes that she'll make. But I think she's going to start to build up both her confidence and her faith. And I think she's going to find a more balanced sense of self on the other side, where she really can be of service and be of help, but also be compassionate and be caring and know what each situation calls for. I think her being exposed to sort of the gray area in life is starting to teach her that there's nuance to life. There's nuance to conflict and to trials, and it's not all black and white. And so I think she's going to come out on the other side knowing how to love well and how to love herself and others better as a result of being through this. So I'm hoping to see a Kate that is more self-assured, a little softer, but also more confident and not afraid of that strength and that potential that she has.
You've read my notes. Well, Summer, I want to thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. This
is
fun.
Fantastic. We look forward to see what happens to Kate in season 3.
Stay tuned.
Bye, guys.
Homestead is a Not Another Podcast production.